So Moonfall was directed by Roland Emmerich and it stars Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, John Bradley, Michael Pena, Donald Sutherland. And the moon is out of orbit and now it's causing all these problems, tsunamis, flooding, shifts in the tectonic plates, all this trouble. And so now a disgraced astronaut played by Patrick Wilson, the new reluctant head of NASA played by Halle Berry, and a conspiracy theorist played by John Bradley now must go into space and try to figure out what exactly is going on and try to stop it and try to fix whatever's happening on Earth before anything bad happens. Anything even worse that happens in this movie. So, I was not looking forward to this movie. I am honestly not a big fan of Roland Emmerich. I remember liking The Day After Tomorrow as a kid, and admittedly, I bought the Blu-ray, yeah. But I think I liked it because it was visually interesting, and I do find that type of thing interesting as well. But a lot of his movies are just the same. It's just end of the world scenarios, alien invasion, climate change, end of the world, literally the end of the world, and basically it's all the same movie. It's just different disasters, different set of characters. It just depends on their likability and such. And this movie just didn't look any different. It looked like a knockoff of a knockoff. It looked like a parody of a Roland Emmerich movie, to be honest. And this is a terrible movie. This is a really terrible movie. Like, is that really surprising? This movie's really bad. Like, you could say, oh, well, it's a Roland Emmerich movie. You could just turn your brain off and kind of enjoy it for how ridiculous it is. Normally, I would agree with that, but at the same time, I'm like, this movie tries to take itself too seriously. Honestly, way too seriously for a movie like this. At least Jackass Forever knew it didn't have to take itself too seriously to be fun. This movie doesn't understand that. It really just doesn't. Oh my god, it's so bad. It's really, really bad. So anything that works. There are some sequences that are good, like the scene where they're launching into space. That was good. The big climax at the end, when I'm not going to spoil it, but visually it's impressive. And admittedly, this movie is unintentionally hilarious, particularly in the ending. I won't spoil it, but the ending, I really wanted to laugh, but there were other people in the theater, and I didn't want to be rude in case they were actually enjoying this thing. But other than that, everything else about this movie is terrible. I mean, horrible. Really horrible. Most of the performances in this movie are just kind of bland, to be honest. Halle Berry, she's kind of boring through this movie. Honestly, Halle Berry looks like she looks confused by everything in this movie. She looks like there's moments when Patrick Wilson and John Bradley are talking, and Halle Berry just looks confused. It's like, what am I doing? What am I even doing in this movie? Patrick Wilson, he's boring. You could replace him with any actor. You could replace him with Dennis Quaid from Day After Tomorrow, or you could replace him with John Cusack from 2012. And honestly, it wouldn't have made any difference. Like, his character's not that interesting. It's a cliche, and I just didn't care. I like Patrick Wilson, but here, no. Charlie Plummer, he plays Patrick Wilson's son. Boring. Didn't care. John Bradley, he's probably the best performance in the movie, but at the same time, his character is at times obnoxious, at times annoying, and I just hated a lot of the things he did, particularly in the first half of this movie. It was just boring. It was just bad. I just hated his character a lot. He even has the funniest line in the movie. He's like, I applied for NASA once, and the NASA scientist is like, oh, really, for what? And he goes, janitor. Like, that could be really funny, except it was from this character who I thought was just absolutely horrible, so I didn't think it was funny. It's that weird. It's weird. I hated him. Also, there were a couple wasted actors in this movie. Michael Pena's in this movie briefly, and I feel bad. He's a good actor, but here, no. Donald Sutherland, one scene, that's it. And he's credited among the main cast. That's how important he is. And you're probably thinking, like, oh, it's a Roland Emmerich movie, so it's gotta be visually amazing. Well, those two sequences I mentioned are amazing. Pretty much everything else is kind of boring to me. There's a lot of bland visuals throughout this entire movie, like the water, like there's a tsunami scene, and it's just not that interesting, honestly. It's kind of boring, to be honest. There's a lot of like flimsy cause and effect, like because of everything that's going on. There's a lot of like violence, there's a lot of chaos in society, and it's barely explained. It just happens, and like nothing is ever explained, and this movie is over 2 hours long. You'd think it could explain that a little bit more. But no, they just don't. It just happens. It just happens because things are in chaos and nothing else matters in this movie. And the first half of this movie is just incredibly boring. It's not interesting at all. Again, the visuals aren't interesting. What they're talking about isn't interesting. It just sounds like they're saying a lot of cliched lines that you've heard in a bunch of other Roland Emmerich movies, and it's boring. But the second half of this movie is just complete and total insanity. Oh my god, like this may be the most insane movie I will see this year, and that will probably say a lot. It is ridiculous, it's insane, the ending especially. The ending, I really wanted to laugh. It makes zero sense. Like, why? It doesn't make any sense. I won't spoil it, but oh my god, I wanted to laugh. Again, trying to be respectful, but it's bad. It's really, really bad. And also, basically, I also felt like Roland Emmerich was kind of just borrowing from a bunch of other movies. Mainly his movies, like, Day After Tomorrow, 2012, Independence Day, and even from scenes from movies like Gravity, for instance. Like, you're borrowing from other better disaster movies, and it doesn't make your movie better. If you're borrowing from these other movies, it only makes me realize that those movies are better. It makes me realize that 2012 was better than this, and I hated 2012. That is how bad this movie is. It makes me look at 2012 and go, maybe you weren't so bad after all, 2012. Oh well. And basically, also, the movie it basically makes everything up as it goes along, and it just does not work. It just does not make any sense whatsoever. And again, I could turn it off my brain and kind of enjoy it as like a visually pleasing movie, but it tries to take itself way too seriously. Again, for the first half, it's just way too serious. Actually, for the entire movie, it's way too serious. At least Day After Tomorrow, yeah, admittedly, they did take that a bit serious too, but I still found it enjoyable. I still found the characters at least interesting enough. And visually, it was always amazing, but here, not so much. It's just kind of boring. And also, the movie is way, way too long. The movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes. There's no need for this movie to be 2 hours and 10 minutes. There's no reason for this movie to be 2 hours. This movie should have been an hour and a half. Solved. Done. Over with. Would have been perfect. But no, because it's Roland Emmerich, he has to go bigger than most other directors probably would with this movie. It's just a very uneven movie. It's just uninteresting. And this movie is basically also, I walked out of it thinking, or actually not before, while I was watching it, this is what I thought. This movie is a conspiracy theorist's wet dream of a movie. Like, if someone came up to you and said that this is actually happening, you would think they were crazy. And it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. It makes no sense. Moonfall is a really terrible movie, despite some decent sequences, and its unintentional hilariousness. Everything else is bad. The acting is bad, the pacing's bad, the tone is bad, its explanations are bad, the visuals aren't as interesting. It's crazy, it's insane, it's stupid, and it doesn't even know how dumb it really is. It's such a bad movie that I can't really recommend it. If you really want to see another end of the world type of movie, literally watch the other dozen Roland Emmerich movies that were better than this. It's bad. It's really bad. I'm giving Moonfall 0.5 out of 4 stars. Skip it. So, what was your favorite disaster movie? Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe. Don't see this.